This episode of Yes But Why podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/yesbutwhy. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Download your free audiobook today at audibletrial.com/yesbutwhy. I'm Amy Jordan, and this is Yes But Why podcast. Yeah.
We didn't know that this was going to be our path.
Yeah.
And I know that growing up, Lane and I, individually, we were both obsessed with comedy and watching Saturday Night Live, watching The Simpsons, watching the MTV shows. And it seemed like a really fun thing to enjoy, but just as a passive viewer. Yeah. And it did not seem... I never would have guessed that this would be my main thing outside of work. I never would have guessed that I would be doing this and like doing it regularly. Comedy didn't seem like something for me as a performer. And so over time, being with Lane, he gets me out of my shell to the sense that like he was like, you're very funny. You have a lot to offer, like other people would enjoy this. And so he kind of helped me realize that was a possibility. Again, didn't think it was a possibility because I grew up very, very, very shy and just deferred to others. But so yeah, when we had been married for a couple of years, we finally decided, let's stop just being passive observers of it and actually start taking a class and just see what a level 1 was going to be like. Let's just start there. We don't have to go all in, but just see what that level 1 was.
Did you guys grow up together? Like, have you known each other your whole lives?
No. We met when I had just graduated from UT, and you were a sophomore at UT?
Yes. I was 21.
Yeah.
Oh, UT. Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So we both had been in Austin for a long time.
Yeah.
UT's a big deal. I mean, I didn't realize I grew up in Boston, so I didn't know too much about it. But when I went to University of Dallas, which is a small private Catholic school.
Oh, it's a very reputable school.
Oh, that's very nice of you to say. I was like, its connection to Catholicism at all. Insane. Anyway, but I remember when I got here and I like understood Texas all of a sudden, and they were like, oh, UT. Like, oh, the big deal.
The University of the Texas.
It's a big deal down here. Yeah. No. So, are you both from Texas?
Yes.
Yeah. We grew up about maybe just 30 or 40 minutes apart from each other, but we met down. Yeah, but we met. We met down here in Austin, and she was. So I'll kind of tell my. Story with comedy is I was a very hardcore fan of comedy and was very much a comedy nerd. Like I feel like the kids and freaks and geeks who like are watching, like they'll watch a late night talk show host or a comedian on a late night talk show host, and then the next day they're performing it for their friends. Like that was me. I was like super nerdy. I was not athletic, but like I loved making my friends laugh. That's really what I lived for. And as a little kid, I wanted to be a stand-up comedian. The problem is that I also just had the thing that has always tripped me up is I kind of just now in the last few years I feel like I've been putting things into perspective where it's always been this self-doubt and anxiety that kind of held me up for years, which Which, so, like, for instance, like, as far back, I think my parents tell me I was, like, 4 or 5, and I wanted to dress up as a comedian for Halloween. And, like, my parents didn't know how to help me with that, so I was just, like, the Hulk instead.
There's no plastic mask and smock available for comedian.
I desperately wanted to be a politician. I used to say I want to be either a politician or a comedian.
These are very similar.
Exactly. Yeah.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
No, when I was a kid, I got into performing through my mother's politics. My mother went and did political things and would bring us with her.
Oh.
And both to draw attention to her, whatever she was.
Wow. What sort of political stuff was she doing?
Like teachers, and we worked at the teachers union, or she worked at the teachers union, and I did a tight 5 up front, trying to get them in the door.
A tight 5.
Well, you know what I mean. Like, there's a line. They would have elections, and we would go and talk to the people in the line as they were going, and like she would hold picket signs for people. Yeah, it was great. I had impressions that I did. I had a series of bits that I would do for people. They would call me over and tell me to do them.
Did you have a good Dan Quayle?
No. No, I had like Julia Child, and then
nice.
What else?
That PBS crowd in.
Yeah, this was the crowd. This was the PBS crowd. Boston teachers are the PBS crowd. Yeah,
yes.
for sure.
That's the big. What's it called? The big
WRR.
WBZ?
WBZ.
Yes.
Yes.
I was like, what are we talking about?
The PBS station out of Boston, where most of the programming comes from, right?
Oh yeah. You see it.
You see it in there. Yeah, all over the country. You'll see if it was made by the Boston one. It'll go. Yeah,
it's made by Boston.
Yeah, there's a ton of that.
Quality.
There's a ton of that. Yeah, that was the whole crowd.
Yeah,
so that was my parents. So yeah, politician. Like the idea that, and it's sort of sadder and harder as adults to say that. Like, comedian, politician, they're the same.
Yeah.
But realistically, the essence of both skills are very
that's what I remember.
Communicator. That was your.
That's what I remember. Adults would always say. I would say, and I wouldn't get the joke. I would say I want to be a politician or a comedian, and then the adults would say, "What's the difference?" And then so that is funny. Like so
Man,
that
if only they knew. The president was like Jimmy Carter at this point. They were so fine.
Yeah, this would have been.
My God, the worst thing I had ever seen was Reagan. They were like, ugh.
Yeah, Reagan. This was
I would kill
Reagan.
for a peanut farmer.
Give me a Reagan.
I'll
take
Reagan.
Yeah.
I'll take
I know
it.
that he's terrible. I'll take him.
Yeah,
Iran Contra was going on. Oliver North was
the salad days.
Yeah.
When the lying was simple.
Yeah. And then I got sidetracked though. At the age of 14, I saw Pulp Fiction, and that is when I realized what I want to do is I want to be Quentin Tarantino, and that's how I ended up going to UT is because again, anxiety. Even though I probably, in retrospect, I think I should have been looking at NYU and USC film schools. I was so nervous about being that far away from home that this was kind of right when UT Film School was kind of getting on the map. So like late 90s, I graduated high school in 98. And so it was like, oh, this is perfect. This will be, there's a film school just a couple 100 miles away. I'll go there. And then I realized right away that I was not going to be the next Quentin Tarantino. And I kind of just floundered. I was aimless a little bit in college. And I ended up gravitating towards radio. So I ended up, getting a college radio show at KVRX. And then I worked in radio for 5 years, hence the radio voice.
You hear those dulcet tones? That's Lane Ingram, award-winning radio broadcaster.
Sibilance, you get it. Yeah. Aerosmith. She is a big Aerosmith fan.
Okay, well, you got to qualify that.
She gets embarrassed. She loves Aerosmith.
I still enjoy them for karaoke.
She loves Aerosmith.
But they are not a great band.
She loves Aerosmith.
Oh no, they are a good band. They're a good band for lots of reasons.
They're from Boston.
Everyone, yeah.
Beantown, the boys
everyone-
from Beantown.
I don't know if they're all from Boston, to be totally honest with you, but I do think of Boston when I think of them, and also they were such a part of the '90s.
Yeah.
Because it was their reboot.
It was
yeah.
That's the thing is like if I was to listen to some Aerosmith, like I want to listen to 70s Aerosmith because that was cool as shit. 90s Aerosmith is nostalgic and it's bad good, and that's the kind that I like to karaoke.
Yeah,
But don't you feel sad sometimes when you listen to 70s era Aerosmith and you hear sweet little voice Steven singing,
real voice,
and you're like, oh, you're gone now.
Yeah.
How are you?
That Steven is gone.
Dream on.
There's
yeah.
no, like these beautiful high notes, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh man, there's a voice teacher that cries every time they hear it on the radio,
Yeah.
who's all like, he let it go.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, because it just, whenever I hear it, I'm like, I love them, you're right, they are good, solid 70s tunes, but like, oh, it just breaks my heart. And in fact, that's why I like Aerosmith, because I feel like, I mean, certainly within the context of like the reason why I like doing this kind of podcast is they have a full career that we have watched every little detail of.
Yeah.
Like we've seen when they were young and they got these, and they sang beautifully and they got these great opportunities, and then they took those opportunities and they used them for different things, but then turns
They
out
had that epic
the drugs
rise and the
screaming
shame
was too
spiral.
much.
Right.
But also keep in mind, then we had the 80s. There was a lot of screaming then. Nobody told them not to scream.
Yeah.
There was so much screaming, right?
We
Always
have-
we were
the
all
screaming.
over here going, we can hear you.
Right?
You don't have to scream. But they were so busy screaming, they weren't listening.
No, they were not. They were not. No, there were no.
Let's-
The ladies shaking their fingers. They didn't look at them. They didn't look at them.
It's a damn shame.
How has this become an Aerosmith podcast?
Yeah.
No, I mean, well, what's interesting, I don't know why he brought it up for you.
Yeah, what the heck,
It was because
Lane?
of
I'm so
sibilance.
much more.
That's
I'm
from
sibilance.
Oh, that's
Tom
so
Hanks
funny.
and the Aerosmith. But no,
yeah.
So, but the radio actually was a part of how we connected because Chloe's father worked in radio.
Oh.
Yes. So my father was a radio DJ, and he has since left this mortal coil. But he was a big time radio DJ and
He was
an actor, and
he did a nationally syndicated radio show back in the 50s.
in the 50s, that was done through American Airlines. Back in the day, American Airlines would have this overnight programming, and there would be DJs regionally throughout the country that would be playing various records, and it was called Music Till Dawn. And so it was primarily like classical and some standards and kind of that softer stuff. And my dad was obsessed with jazz and classical, and so he was the like Southwest region DJ, and so he would be broadcasting like all through the night, and then as he got older and met my mom and still continued to be a disc jockey, but also did like acting and emceeing, and what do you know? I ended up marrying him. Because when I met Lane, he was in radio, was funny and charming. And
I was a 50-year-old man trapped in a 23-year-old
he smoked
body.
cigars. My dad smoked cigars, and I was just like, it did not sink in for a while. That's what had happened, but then it was just like, well, this is it. Yep. This is my life, and and it's so interesting that we both had somewhat similar upbringings. And
we both have sisters who are 9 years older than us.
yeah, so we both were raised almost
specific.
like
Yeah,
it's
isn't that
very
weird?
weird and specific, and we were both kind of raised like only children because our sisters were so much older than us that they were doing big kid stuff and out of the house and college and living their adult lives.
Hold on, I don't pray, but I'm just going to pray for a moment that I don't have a child 9 years after the child that I currently have. Okay,
you go,
sorry.
Sam.
I figured if I was going to start praying,
Smart
it should
move.
be this was the time. Seems smart.
7 years
You
from
guys
now.
have this weird.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
getting it on me.
Right.
Happening.
You've stepped
I got
inside
it.
our abode, and it could happen. You might get pregnant in 7 years.
So crazy. That would be terrible. Please.
I've always-
I'll call you and curse your name.
I've always thought that there's something to the fact that when you grow up in a house that's just when you have a sibling that's 9 years older than you, and then your parents are your dad was 50 when you were born.
Yes, my dad was an older dad, so we have
and
that.
my parents were not older parents when you think about now, but I think at the time I was born in 80, and my dad was 35 when I was born.
Geriatric.
So a little bit.
That's still older. I mean,
little
my
bit on the
dad was
older
30
side.
and they thought it was crazy.
Yeah. My mom would have been 30. I think my dad was 34, 35, somewhere in there when I was born. And so, yeah, that, and then compounded with the fact that, when I'm 10, my sister's 19. It's just such a different world.
It is a different world, and so in a sense,
when
you have three parents.
Three
because
parents,
that older sibling takes on a very maternal
But the
role.
big difference, though, big difference, in my opinion, is pre-internet age, when you're growing up in a house full of adults. This is the way I always put it into words, is I always wanted to be a part of the adult conversation.
Absolutely.
So to me, that meant, nowadays with the internet, I don't know that that's a thing anymore, because why would you want to be a part of the adult conversation when you can, with a tablet, the conversation comes to you. You can have a world that's
find whatever group you wanna be
tailor-made
with.
just to you. But for me to exist in that house full of adults meant everyone's face is glued to the Oliver North Iran-Contra hearings. I was mesmerized by, on the television, which, we had the 3 networks. It was kind of the last days. We got cable at some point when I got a little older, but it was still the 3 networks, and when everyone was glued to the television, it was people either watching a politician or people watching a stand-up comedian. And so, Robin Williams. I remember Robin Williams, Whoopi Goldberg, Billy Crystal. Those people were huge. Saturday Night Live.
You were a captive audience because that's what your parents were watching and was kind of happening.
Yeah.
And so it was like, well, if you're going to watch TV, this is what the adults are watching.
Yeah, and
so
I wanted to
if
get
this
it.
is up to-
I
there was a
wanted
desire
to. Oh, the
know.
adults are laughing at this. Why do they find this funny? And it was I can still remember there was a joke about it was a Ronald Reagan impersonator doing some very hacky comedy, but I remember everyone in my family was watching it and I was mesmerized. It was one of my earliest comedy memories. And the guy comes out to the microphone and his arms are just sort of flailing around and he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. I have trouble with arms control."
Jesus.
And everyone in my family laughed, and the audience is laughing on television. And I go, "What does that mean?" And they go, "Well, arms can mean your arm, but it can also mean weapons and the military and stuff." And it was just I desperately wanted to know what makes adults laugh.
Yeah, there was this coveted thing. It's I can't quite put my finger on it, but I want to unlock what is making these adults smile. Because I think Lane and I both grew up wanting so desperately to make our parents laugh, but specifically our fathers.
Yeah.
And so, being around my dad was very much in tune with what was funny. And so,
Was he big and gregarious? Is that why? Because you said that you were very shy. Was he just such a huge personality you felt you couldn't compete?
He is the person who lit up a room and who everyone would form a semicircle around him.
Yeah.
He just had that persona.
Yeah.
And
so it never even occurred to you to be the person.
No, yeah, this is a picture of my dad.
Oh my God, he
from
looks like
back in the
George
day.
Clooney.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He was a handsome fella.
Yeah, yeah.
Went to SMU.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man. Oh, SMU.
Yeah. He
SMU were the actual theater kids to my University of Dallas theater kids. We were we do just as good as stuff, But SMU got all the credit because
They got
SMU was
that
SMU. Yeah. And people were like, it's important. They're Shakespeare. Your Shakespeare is not important. And we're like,
they had that T. Boone Pickens level of money.
And wasn't your dad the youngest of his family?
My dad was the baby of his family.
Like Chloe has first cousins that she recently reconnected with from the Northeast, from Maryland.
And he's like 68.
Like her first cousin is 68 because he's the youngest.
Oh,
and
right.
she was 50 when Chloe was born. So anyway, it's just
there's all this older generation that are either like super close relatives.
Yeah, and so being with him, as my parents divorced when I was about 5, I would spend weekends with him, and it was very much like palling around time, and he was so excited to share what he grew up loving, and it was always old stuff I had nothing to relate to other children about because he was exposing me wonderfully to jazz and art and musicals. Our big thing was going to the Dallas Summer Musicals. And so, like, I was just like, why doesn't everyone want to talk about Rodgers and Hammerstein? And, you know, why doesn't anyone love the Miles Davis album Sketches of Spain as much as I do? And it's because my dad was significantly older, but he also had this understanding of what was funny then. So, like, growing up in North Texas, it was not uncommon for me to have friends that weren't allowed to watch certain shows. The Simpsons, Beavis and Butthead, sometimes even Saturday Night Live. It's too mature, it's blasphemous, it's not right.
Yeah.
And my dad and my mom, they never stopped me from watching anything, but I was also a pretty good kid, so it wasn't like I was trying to seek, you know, stuff that was too advanced for me. But my dad, he was the first one to show me, like, Ren and Stimpy. And he was the first one to show me Beavis and Butthead because my dad was a night owl from his early days in radio. So he would be up late at night and he would catch stuff on MTV and he would flip around. And so he was showing me this stuff and being like, this is really cool. And
right. No, I
think
just,
it was his way of trying to branch the generation.
Yeah, and just hearing about Chloe's dad over the years, I'm so bummed I never got to meet him. When I met Chloe, he would have passed maybe 2 years earlier or something like that ish. But just hearing about him over the years, like, Chloe got a really unique experience growing up because it was like, you know, he was into jazz. And so for him, the Beatles were considered like too new, like too strange and like not, Chloe inherited his record collection. He had literally thousands of albums and no rock and roll. Zero. Yeah. All jazz, all obscure, like salsa music, obscure.
A lot of dinner music.
Lawrence Welk, big band, classical musicals. And so Chloe got the benefit, like almost like a mini classical education and sort of like art history, musical theater, music, like music appreciation. And so Chloe kind of, when we met, she kind of opened me up to like a whole new world. And that was really cool. But what I was going to say, just like Chloe and I, when we met at a party where we both started quoting The Simpsons, and we just geeked out. And it was rare for me to meet anyone, let alone a girl. I cannot emphasize that enough. It's like, oh, Lane, you're sexist. A girl can like The Simpsons. I'm telling you, in 2002 or whenever, 2003 when we met, I had never met, I would have killed to have met a girl who could quote The Simpsons. And I meet Chloe, and she's just so magnetic, and she's beautiful, and she's so funny, and she can quote every line of The Simpsons that I can quote. Every reference I can throw at her, she's like right there. If I say one line of dialogue, she can say the following like line of dialogue, so we're just riffing Simpsons stuff, and we both realized we grew up on 90s Saturday Night Live, and we just have so many of the same comedy cultural references. We were just kind of off to the races when it came to that sort of stuff.
And I think that growing up with that older parent that taught me about kind of the foundations of modern comedy. I don't know that he was always actively doing that. Although he would play for me like Spike Jones albums, like old stuff. And so I think in a way he was showing me how comedy was happening. And so I think it was something that was always there. And so, when Lane and I got together, we quickly realized almost instantly that comedy was going to be the thing that was our glue. That was going to be our connection, and it really has been. I mean, we've been together for 15 years, and
15 years, and then married for 12.
Yeah, and really, it's like, what started out as like talking about comedy became trips to go see performances, whether it was like improv at UCB in New York, or going out to LA to see things, or we
took a trip to Chicago and saw a Second City main stage show back then.
So you knew all about these things.
We knew all about
this
this
even
stuff.
took a class.
Before we even took a class.
Again,
how did you know about these things? I legitimately did not know improv was a thing until I took my first class.
No, I think I first heard of Second City when I was like maybe a sophomore or junior in college, and I was like, why have I never heard of this? And in Austin, I got to Austin in 98, and I was here from 98 to 04, my first go-around in Austin. And I wish there had been more comedy stuff. I was completely unaware of any improv or improv classes. That's one of my big regrets, is that I didn't pounce on some sort of like forcing myself to do an open mic, forcing myself to take an improv class. I think I would have just found it so much sooner. But see, part of me, I always wanted to do something performative, which is why, like radio, it was like, oh, well, I can.
Oh yeah, radio is great.
I could be funny on the. Cool it was like I could be funny on the air, and I get paid for it, and maybe that could be, and it's like a real job. It seemed.
Yeah.
But then I got pigeonholed into doing news, just dry, boring reporting the news on the air, and working for like conservative news talk station. See, my first gig in radio, it all started wonderfully as I was the intern for the Dudley and Bob morning show here in Austin on 93.7 KLBJ. They're still on the air. They're fantastic. They're like, they're a funny FM morning show, and they're legit good. They're not trying to be wacky or zany. They're not trying to be Howard Stern, but they're funny. They're intelligent. Matt Bearden is now their third person, and he's been there a long time. Austin comedian who's wonderful. And so my first gig was with them, and within a week, I'm like getting to goof around with them on the air in very small doses, because that's all you really. They bring you on when they say, you get to go on when they say you can come on. And within a week, they had me, I remember they brought in dominatrixes, and Dale Dudley, the host of Dudley and Bob, turns to me and is like, hey, we were going to have this cute girl get dominated by these dominatrixes on the air. She's stuck in traffic. Lane, you want to do it? And I'm like, airtime? Yes. So I've been there a week to the day, and I'm in my underwear with nipple clamps on, getting spanked by dominatrixes live on the air.
On the radio.
And I'm like, I found it. I found my outlet. This is me getting to be funny, and maybe I'll get paid for it someday.
And that's how you became a dom.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a lot of dominatrix podcasts out there? Just audio dominatrixing, like
ASMR, but for that's smart.
Yeah. Hey.
But I like it.
I like it.
No.
There's a lot of that.
I gotta ice this. Heat then ice. Heat then ice.
That's the post. That's the medical show that happens after the dominatrix. You're like, oh, that was so sexy. Let's listen to the medical podcast that's them healing their wounds.
Yes,
after.
wound suturing.
Yeah.
Post.
So now I'm taking apart the protective sterile casing around
ASMR
the
wound
bandage.
suturing. Yeah. God, that's great.
A little bit of Neosporin breaking the seal.
But it was but it was Chloe who turned to me. So Chloe was the funniest person I'd ever met. Her and I just goofing around. We cracked each other up. Every day with her was like an endless series of inside jokes and funny voices, and we still have inside jokes that have been going on forever that we riff on every day. Anyway,
that we should retire, but these bits just keep coming.
I believe that's how marriage is built.
Yeah,
so stick
boom.
with them.
It
seems fine.
It is like there is this shared language of gibberish.
But no,
and bits.
But it was Chloe who was like, she's getting a degree in, at the time she's getting her degree in architecture. She's getting then a master's degree in architecture, and I'm kind of like, what am I doing? Chloe is like, she's kicking ass. She's going to be an architect. And what am I doing? I wanted to be Quentin Tarantino. I wanted to be a comedian. And I'm doing the news for like these conservative news talk stations. I'm in Dallas at this point. And we're doing a long distance thing for a while. You're still down in Austin finishing
working
school,
on my degree,
and I'm up in Dallas, and I just I'm like banging my head against the wall, like I don't know what to do. I'm like, should I quit it all and try and be an actor? I was like, maybe I should be an actor. I was like, should I go to law school? Should I be a filmmaker? And finally, I realized I was going through some stuff, kind of needed help processing some emotions, some anxiety and stuff, and so I was seeing.
Sure, sounds like you have a lot of career decisions. Going on. You might as well
I don't know why
talk
you're
to
so
somebody.
anxious.
Yeah. I don't get You're trying to decide what you want to do with your whole life.
Right.
It seems like a simple decision.
Like get it together.
Oh my
it's
God.
that quarter life crisis. It was when they were first starting to coin that phrase.
John Mayer.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Garden State was around at this point.
Oh, Garden State. It made us all really understand our quarter life crises at that point.
And Chloe, like the soundtrack to Garden State, Chloe was like, I was into all these bands 2 years ago.
I was not that pretentious.
No, you were cool.
I was one of those people
You're
who was
cool.
I was a little pretentious, but I was kind of cool.
You're very cool. You're very cool.
Yeah. But no, it was, so I realized, I want to be a therapist. I randomly met someone, like a friend of a friend who was just starting to become a therapist. So he was a few years further along in his journey. So here I am, I'm seeing a therapist. I'm now friends with a therapist, and I just start like researching what it would take for me to become a therapist, and I just one by one start making that happen. And my thought is, this is my plan. This is my game plan back when I'm 26, 27. It's like, I'll be a therapist. I can have a flexible schedule in private practice, and I can do my goofy creative stuff, maybe comedy or acting or filmmaking, and I can do that around my flexible. And the thing is it only took 13 years to make that actually happen. I finally had to pinch myself like, this is why
super fast.
Yeah, so it was this really long, convoluted.
It was a long journey for you, but I mean, it's what had to happen because you now have this career that you love. It's not just a job for you, and it's something that it all relies on you because you're a sole practitioner, and you have to maintain your roster of clients, and But it's
I say 13 years, but it was more like, it was probably more like 10, 11 years.
Yeah,
but also it was like not
insignificant.
Insignificant. It was like 10 years ish, and it also was I skipped a bunch of stuff.
Well, I was just going to say, you went on that journey, and I think it was completely necessary because now you're doing something that it is work, but it's your life's work.
Yeah, but tell them about us getting into improv. It was your idea. You were the one who made it happen.
Yes. So Okay, so
Oh, yeah, we touched on this pre-recording, so tell me, you guys decided to take an improv class.
Yeah, so we're still
Pivotal
kind of
moment.
newlyweds.
Pivotal,
We've been married for a while. We've got a house in Fort Worth, and that's great and all, but I was like, we should be doing something more. Like, we're young, we're a sexy couple. And so I hear about this theater in Fort Worth that is teaching improv, and I was like, what are the odds that there's a place in Fort Worth that has these classes?
And you had just taken me to a show. You found it all. You found it.
I don't even remember how I found out about it.
4-day weekend. 4-day weekend. Who's great. They were wonderful.
4-day weekend
But
is
at
how
this
it
point,
all
we've already
started.
seen an Ass Cat at UCB New York.
We've been to Chicago and
seen Second City.
So, like, we have a familiarity with what improv is, but...
And at the time, this is the crazy thing. I always, in retrospect, this, in my opinion, is the craziest thing of all, is I see improv, and then I'm like, how this happen? How this work? What is improv? This is fascinating to me. And then I heard about this book, Truth in Comedy. And I heard that there's this guy, Del Close, and hey, all these people you love, Mike Myers,
Chris
John
Farley.
Belushi, Chris Farley, like so many of these people trained in this stuff called improv in Chicago. And anyway, there's this book. You got to read it. So I read Truth in Comedy, not having taken an improv class, and the whole time I'm reading Truth in Comedy, I'm thinking to myself, ooh, this is fascinating. I'm getting to learn like the nuts and bolts of like this comedic art form. But clearly I'm not cut out for this. I'm never going to actually do this, because you have to be like a genius to do this.
Yeah,
and
you
fearless.
have to be like 20 and yeah.
So I read it thinking I'm never going to do it. And then Chloe...
So I just said, like, okay, let's just take a class. And it was half convincing him and half convincing myself that we could do it.
Because we're in grad school, we're broke.
I was very comfortable with him, very comfortable around my friends, but I did not want to be a performer. I just always liked watching other people and being like, that's really cool, but I can't do that. That's just not who I am. I'm supposed to be the wallflower out of the spotlight forever and ever. And so part of it was for me to convince myself that this is something I've got to at least try, because there were so many times in my life where I was like, I'm not even going to try the scary thing because it's scary and I don't know it. And I was like, I don't know what it is. It's like I'm in my mid-20s, and all of a sudden I'm like, I want to try the scary thing. And not be afraid to fail. I was very much afraid to fail, and just kind of like in school and life with relationships. And so this was a great opportunity to just like, let's just throw caution to the wind. And it's really not even that scary, but it was a big step in our relationship.
Nice? I mean, there have been a lot of improv stories I've heard in the world where people are not so nice. So
they were great.
They were so welcoming and really helped give us a good foundation.
What was the name of the theater?
4-day weekend.
Oh.
4-day weekend.
I thought that was the troupe, because it sounded...
It is the troupe also.
Yeah.
It's a troupe that named... It's sort of like Upright Citizens Brigade in the sense that it's the troupe and the theater. But the name of the troupe and theater is a Simpsons reference. It's a quote. If you're a hardcore Simpsons fan, you know about the 4-day weekend. Woohoo! Okay. But Chloe is the one that says we got to do this, and I'm the one who came up with all these reasons we supposedly couldn't do it or we should put it off. And Chloe's like, no, we're doing it. And I thank you for that. I thank you for that. Then the other thing where, just the little things that had to happen to end up where you are in life. So one, it was Chloe forcing us to do it, which was wonderful. But then at the end of level 1, we were on the fence about whether we wanted to continue, because it was like, again, it was that idea of we're broke and do we have time for this? And we had made up our minds to not take level 2 and wait, which I know if we had put it off,
we would have never taken it again.
You just never know.
The main reason we didn't at the time was because I had gotten laid off from my job.
Oh, that's
this
right.
was 2009, so this was right during
You
the
had just
recession.
gotten laid off.
I'd gotten laid off, and I was just about to graduate from grad school.
I forgot
and
about
so
that.
money was real tight, and it was like we didn't know what was going to happen.
Well, and we went. So here's where the gratitude comes in, and the
Big
luck
time gratitude.
is we went to the 4-day weekend people, and it was right after our showcase, and all the owners were there, and our showcase was just a blast. And we went up to one of the owners. I want to say it was David Wilk, right? David Wilk.
Dave Wilk.
And he's one of the owners. He's still there. He's great. And I said, he's like, y'all were great. And I mean, I would like to think that David, I'd like to think that even way back then in our first showcase, maybe he saw some spark or something. But I remember he was like, hey, that was great. Way to go. And we're like, oh, that was so much fun. He's like, yeah, did you have fun? We're like, yeah, we had fun. And he's like, so are y'all signing up for level 2? And we go, oh, no, money's real tight. We're broke, and Chloe got laid off. So we actually decided to not do it. And Dave said, oh, just sign up anyway. And
Well, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. I would hate for that to be the reason y'all don't continue. Just sign up, and I'll make it work, and we'll figure something out.
Yeah, so they allowed the two of us to sign up for their level 2, which is
Free of charge.
They never asked us for anything for that.
And once we did the level 2, that's when
sealed
improv
it.
really sunk its teeth into us. And then when it came time to re-up for level 3 and 4, we scraped together the money, and we paid for level 3 and level 4.
Yeah, I was still laid off, but we were like, this is worth it, because at that time we realized, when you're going through something really shitty, you've got to have an outlet for some modicum of positivity and joy and release in your life. If you are constantly worrying about all the crap that's going wrong, or you're perceiving it as going wrong, if you're constantly focused on that, like, how are you going to dig yourself out of that? And so we realized, and
everyone listening, take an improv class.
seriously,
Yeah,
we realized, and
no
like
kidding.
even our families, they were helping to support us through that time. They said, this is a wonderful thing for you guys. You're newlyweds.
Yeah.
Like, this is good. This is food for the soul. And so we graduated from that program, and still it was like, okay, we've done this program, but it wasn't like we're changing our entire lives for improv. We're 24/7 comedy.
But I would say
But we had drunk the Kool-Aid.
we had drunk the Kool-Aid, and it wasn't. We'd been doing improv maybe a year. Oh, no, wait. About a year and a half. I remember it was about the year and a half mark when you and I suddenly started talking, what if we moved to Chicago or LA or something to just try and take it to that next level?
And I think it goes back to Lane and I both being nervous, scared little babies who we were afraid to kind of push our limits in high school and college.
Right.
We were afraid to go to that out-of-state school or on that study abroad trip because it meant something really different. And so
Right.
this was like,
I'm amazed at the people who move to Chicago or New York or LA when they're 18
How do you
or when
do
they're
it?
or when they're 22.
do it?
And so it took us a while to really work up the nerve.
yeah,
and,
we were late to the game, but it was like we at least had enjoyed improv enough to be able to entertain the idea of like, what if this was like something a little bit more? And so eventually we do move to Chicago, and we do study at IO, and
And we're still
is-
working
is
our
at Second
jobs. We're
City.
still doing our thing, but we just wanted to take our improv to that next level. And
So once you got out of grad school,
Yeah.
you were able to find another place, find a job somewhere.
Eventually,
And then
yeah.
that allowed you to move, you know?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
that way you're...
in a
you
way,
know,
it was like it worked out because we both had careers that we loved doing, and we were like getting our teeth into those careers, and improv was the outside of work thing, and it was like our main source of entertainment and how we were meeting people. But I don't know. It was an interesting time because it also allowed us to live outside of Texas for the first time in our lives.
Yeah, we needed to go on an adventure.
We wanted to shake it up.
We needed to do something. We both had. I think I'd always had that thing where I wanted to be the Quentin Tarantino, so I just wanted to get out of Texas and do something bold and out there. And I think Chloe would love travel and exploring and performing, and so it was just those forces all came together, and we just decided to make Chicago happen.
So when did you move to Chicago? What year is that?
That's 2012. End of 2012.
Wow.
We get to Chicago and we do Chicago stuff like you're supposed to. So we signed up for IO classes.
Deep dish pizza.
Deep dish pizza.
You rode on the L.
You rode on the L.
Constantly on the L.
Told everyone to move there during the summer, but only during the summer.
We were making back alley deals.
We were making back alley deals.
We met some mob people.
We got the Chicago mob.
Yes.
We froze our nuts off on the L.
You became best friends with Obama. I know what Chicago's like.
We actually did live around the corner from Rahm Emanuel.
Yeah.
So pretty tight.
Oh, you're like super close
all the time. And I don't want to say he makes a great apple pie, but it's a pretty good apple pie. Do invite him to your potluck.
Yeah.
It's worth it. It's kind of fun to have that little cachet.
Yeah.
So you took classes at IO.
IO, and then Lane did the conservatory at Second City.
Yeah, so I did the thing. I mean, a big part of moving to Chicago is just sort of that, wanting to see if I could get into the Second City Conservatory. So so for anyone who doesn't know what that is or what you have to do to get in, you have to go and audition, and that first audition is anyone can sign up for this. So the horror stories are the people who will sometimes take classes in their hometown, and they take improv really seriously. They maybe read a book or two on improv. They take improv classes, and they perform in their hometown for a couple years, and then they fly to Chicago to see if they can to audition for the Second City Conservatory.
It's an advanced studies
program within the Second City Training Center. You can audition for it. If you've graduated from a training center, you get to audition.
Oh, okay.
But you can graduate from any training center. I mean, and you could make it up. I mean, you can. I'm sure there are people who
they
just
don't
said
ask to see the transcripts. They don't. They don't want to see the comedy transcripts.
But there are people. Yeah. There are people that fly in.
Trying to provide someone with a comedy transcript right
it's
now.
Nothing. It's literally nothing.
But the people that fly in thinking, if I get into the conservatory, I will move to Chicago. And then you audition
again.
With someone.
Who are these bold people?
But listen.
I can do that.
But you audition with a random selection of people, and then you get called out with a stranger to do a 3-person scene. You get called with 2 strangers, and there are people with horror stories of you do all this to get a shot at the big leagues, and you go and you're auditioning with 2 complete dipshits who perhaps have never done improv. They just forge their shit, they fuck up all your shit. So there are people who are like, these idiots fucked up my audition, like the worst. Okay, so I lucked out.
So you have to audition multiple times.
You might have to. You might have to,
and you might have to wait a while for the next round of auditions.
I see. Okay.
So I was my
no pressure.
What is it? My has been and never will be. My never will be ass will always cling on to the fact that I auditioned for the conservatory. I got in on my first audition, and then when you're 16 weeks in, I think it's something like 1 out of 3 people who audition get into the program. And then when you're 16 weeks in, you have to re-audition in order to stay in. And at that point, they cut 50%.
Yeah.
So in all, it's a year-long
It's a year-long program. So I made it through both rounds on my first try, which I'm very... Yeah, which
Do
that
they
actually was
make you redo stuff? Like, for instance, I've heard that, like, in the Groundlings, they do it similarly, where they continue to make you audition, but, like, at the end of each class, they might say, like, you need to take this class again.
Right,
And then you just have to go back to day one.
Second City does do something
They do,
like that.
but it's Groundlings is a bit of an outlier in that they have no problem doing that. I know Second City, it's like, unless you really need to backpedal, I don't think they were as strict.
If you get cut, you can ask for specific feedback, and they'll make recommendations on other classes you might want to think about.
Oh, that's helpful.
But then also, I remember I had a great instructor there named Rachel Mason. She was lovely. And her advice was, she would say, it's like, she goes, if you get cut from the program, the last thing you should do is immediately sign up for another improv class. What you should do is go out and live some life. Go out and take an art class. Learn how to play the 3 chords that every guitarist needs to know to make a pop song. Like, go out and, like, do something, travel, and then come back in 6 months to a year.
Enrich your life in
some other way. And then you'll come back with some other mental muscles being exercised. Like, your life should... Some other great words of wisdom were... from Todd Edwards, improv instructor at I.O., who now lives in L.A. Remember him saying, he goes, if your goal in life, it's like if the reason you're taking this level 1 I.O. class is so that someday you can make an I.O. Herald team, if that's your biggest goal, you need to come up with some better goals. He said, you will never make any money doing this. Now, if you want to take improv as a way to have fun while you also start getting headshots made and going on auditions and try and, like, work the game of becoming a working actor, that's a good way to do it. And, like, he was great at putting it all in perspective of, like, this is not the be-all, end-all. Your life should be about so much more than this.
And that was something that we observed in Chicago, is that there's every kind of performer and every kind of person who comes to Chicago to study comedy. And I think just like there are the people that are just tragically unfunny, there's also the people that are doing it 7 nights a week and just eat, breathe, and sleep this stuff. And I think their comedy suffered because that's all they were doing. If everything is just referencing comedy and what you did the night before, like that's why Lane said that previous instructor was saying, go do something else, enrich your life in something other than just comedy, and that will make your comedy better and it help you become a more well-rounded person. And I think that is part of why Lane and I are still doing improv, are still pursuing comedy, is because we have careers and we have other passions that really help give us inspiration. Outside of our jobs him as a therapist and me as an architect, like we love watching films. We love going on road trips. Just
coitus.
You guys are very adventurous.
We do love fucking. Hi, Mom. Oh my God, Lane's coughing because he's so turned on.
That's how it goes. It gets crazy, the coughing.
This is what
you're
it's like
talking about the Chicago community. It would seem that the Chicago crowd, appreciates the sort of full, well-roundedness of a performer a bit more, if only just because it's not New York and LA.
Yeah.
And it's not like listen, I love Austin, and I tell people all the time, this is a great place to be doing theater and be doing, creative stuff, because there's a lot of it around for you to do, and you can do it full-time or you can not do it full-time, and that's fine. But not yet is this the place they're going to find the famous people. Like,
right.
They're not
For
heading
sure.
here. They should, but they're not. And they're also not going to Chicago. They go to it more than they go to Austin.
Yeah.
But it's still sort of like, you better love this and do it, because
that's why it's called the second city.
It's not going to be. Yeah, it's not. Gonna be New York and L.A. Yeah, if you want to be famous, go there.
Yeah, to go there. Yeah,
that's it.
What I
You're
hope.
a real person in Chicago.
What I would love is if maybe someday Austin could be much like the way there was a brief moment when Seattle became the musical epicenter of the United States.
Oh, 94 was a good year.
I would love it if maybe Austin had a specific, like a comedic sound, a grunge, if you will. No, but if Austin's comedy scene somehow became, like if comedy was like music in that sense, where like, a band like REM could come out of Athens, Georgia, or the way like grunge could come out of Seattle.
The way
a city.
Aerosmith came out of Boston.
Just as an example.
For examples.
Just to bring Aerosmith back up
Just
in case
for
we
instance.
lost
It was funny. I once did,
love
as a test run, I once did a one episode podcast, which I never released, on it was a Rolling Stones fan podcast that I did with a couple other people, and we
so many people.
talked
never flew.
We talked about Aerosmith way too much in that.
It's like when you do a show and you just get stuck in some weird mode that nobody planned for and nobody knows how to get out of it.
Yeah.
Lane played me some of it and he was like, I don't know how we got stuck on Aerosmith.
Kept talking about Aerosmith.
We can't stop talking about this dumb band. We're trying to talk about the greatest rock and roll band alive.
It was so funny.
It's like when you're teaching object work to early improvisers, and you're like, no, the whole scene is not about the egg in your hand. Yeah. It's not about it. Who cares? So you have an egg in your hand. I hold eggs regularly. Come on.
I am never going to look at my scene partner because there's a goddamn egg in my hand.
What am I supposed to do with this egg? Every bit of my life revolves.
How do we solve the problem of the egg?
Wouldn't that be funny in real life if a person was just like, oh my God, everything's about this pen now? It's like, okay. Can we have a conversation?
Everything's about this pen now.
I'm angry about this pen.
Everything is related to this. I would be less angry if you didn't.
But yeah, I think, Chicago, it allowed us to meet people from all over the country. It is this really cool melting pot, and you see people from all sorts of different backgrounds, and they came to Chicago for different reasons and different aspects of performance, and
but
so
it was a lot. It was a lot.
It's a tough town to live in.
I be honest, I didn't like living there. I was just too set in my ways. Being a Texas person, I couldn't handle the winter. I couldn't handle the having to wait on a train platform in negative 20 degrees out, waiting for 20 minutes for a train to get anywhere. All of that was just every little thing was way more difficult than
and then
I was
as soon
used
as you
to.
get inside of a place in the winter, it's always so stuffy.
It's blazing hot.
You feel like you're in a sweat lodge. It's just not great.
It's like, I think Northerners come to Texas and they'll say like, it's 110 degrees outside, but I walk into Walmart and it's like 20 degrees, and it's like that to them it feels either too hot or too cold. And I'm like, I love it when I walk into a grocery store and it's freezing ass cold in the summertime. Feels great.
But it's because it's the opposite.
It's the opposite.
Of wearing a really thick coat. You're sweating outside. You're outside. You're freezing. You go into the subway
as you
you're
breathe.
Sweating.
Yeah, and it
You
just
go out
the
again.
moment it sunk into me was I'm walking to work and I have like special shoes. That's one thing. You gotta buy special shoes for Chicago. And I'm
your Chicago.
My Chicagos. Why is there not a brand named Chicago?
Chicago.
Should be.
Write that down. Thank you.
Chicago.
I'm walking to
Trademark.
the train, and it's horrifically cold, and I'm breathing. The only part of my skin that is exposed is a little, right up above my upper lip, and right to my brow. because everything else is wrapped in multiple layers, and I'm breathing in, and as I'm breathing in, my nose hairs are freezing. And so it's like a bunch of ice crystals forming, and then they defrost, and it was just the most bizarre feeling to have, like, why are humans here? Who decided this was okay?
Yeah.
And I was just like, Lane and I very quickly realized, like, this is not a permanent place for us. This is great for now, but this is not our forever home.
Wanted to soak up as much comedy as we could and as quickly as possible.
We pretended to be 22
and got the hell
so
out of there.
great.
Yeah.
Just hanging out, just partying.
I moved there. We moved there. I was 32 when we moved there. If I was 22, maybe I would have been more adaptable. But at 32, I was like, "Fuck this! Yeah. I want a car. I want to be able to wear sneakers. I hate wearing these snow boots everywhere."
Well, I find then when there's like weather that's in the way, it's harder to do all the things. So we're talking about like being able to have a job, go have this career that we're enjoying, and also going to classes after doing that. Yeah. And not only is it, like you mentioned earlier, sort of better if there's disposable income, it's also better if the weather allows you to move about.
Yes, like I found it very limiting, and
Texas was a great place to be doing that. My entire improv journey has just been in Texas. When I moved to Austin, I was 30, and I started doing improv, and it was just nice.
Yeah,
you know, it was. I never had to worry about too many layers or like I took plenty of acting classes in cold places, and you know you'd get in and you'd have to fully disrobe.
Yeah, and you got the scarf that you gotta unwind,
and then you gotta keep everything all together in
have
a
to
pile.
go in the hat, and then and
in the cities where you take subways, you leave your house, you don't return all day, so you have to bring everything
with you
in a backpack or some sort of rolling briefcase.
Our poor shoulders.
So much.
A shopping cart.
Oh yeah, the shopping cart.
All the different things.
So
we were like, Austin was
sounding
mighty fun.
And so that was kind of our next thing. It was like,
just 1 year.
We did 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah. Oh, bless your heart.
Yeah.
Thank 2 years.
Thank you.
And then,
so we were trying to think of what our next move was, and so at this point, Lane was like, okay, I've been doing therapy for a while, but I want to start my own private practice. He had been working in hospitals and psychiatric facilities, doing like inpatient work. And so he's like, I think I want to take that leap forward into the unknown and really carve out this little space for myself. And where should we go? And we had always...
Plus, you're trying to find like a place.
We want to
settle down. This is where I was saying. Remember, I said it.
Practice. You got to stay.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where I was saying, like, it took 10 years for my dream to become a reality of having a private practice where I had a flexible schedule where I could also do the fun, creative stuff I wanted to do. Yes, that took all those years, but it was kind of by design because it was like I never wanted to go into private practice when we were in Dallas because we knew we wanted to do a comedy city like Chicago or LA or something. So I knew we needed to get that out of our system, and I didn't want to open a private practice only to close it in a year or two because you got to set down roots exactly.
And it takes time to build that practice.
It takes a lot of time and a lot of work. So if you build it up, you don't want to just leave it right away. And then with Chicago, it was like, oh, well, I don't want to set down roots here either. So I kept working in hospitals. And it was like, where can I set down roots? And it was like, boy, to get licensed in California would be a huge pain in the ass. And we'd be broke. And even if we were making quote unquote good money, we would still be like at the poverty line by LA standards.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, Texas was looking better and better, but it was like we didn't want to move right back to Dallas, Fort Worth. And it was like, suddenly we realized, let's go back to Austin. We'd been away for
clouds parted.
We'd been away for 10 years.
Yeah,
we had moved we met in Austin, but moved up to Dallas, Fort Worth for years. We were up there for like 8 years, and then the 2 years in Chicago, so 10 years.
You know what, though? It makes sense because, like, college town always feels collegey. It feels like this place where you were young.
We had to get away.
And you did weird stuff, and that's it. I mean, I was opposite of you. I went to college in Dallas. I don't want to hang out in Dallas anymore because it reminds me of 18-year-old me.
Yeah,
Who's she?
Right.
She's very different.
No, I don't want to talk to her, right? Like what's going on there?
She probably loves
Aerosmith.
Aerosmith.
To be able, she does. If you want to bring it, but if you want to like go back to that place, like it would have to be a majorly good reason to move me back.
And
to
so,
Dallas.
so part of it was
But, hey.
we love the idea of Texas. We love the idea of finding a place where we could establish more of our career goals and do comedy. And we had a slew of friends that we had met in college that still lived here.
Non-comedy
And
friends, if you can believe that.
completely.
Oh, I didn't know there was such a thing.
Civilians.
I've never met those people.
These friends are great. We are still very good friends with them, and there was just something so appealing about like going back to this place where, like, when we lived in Fort Worth, we would come down several times a year and hang out and party with them, and go to like South by Southwest Day shows, and it was just so nice. And so obviously vacationing in a place and hanging out with friends is one thing, living in a place day to day is very different. But it was like, if we can even just capture a little bit of that endless summer feeling that Austin can provide, I think we will be very happy here. And so that was just like the decision we made. I got a job offer. I'm still at that firm that I've been with
It would
since we
seem
moved back.
that both of your careers are well suited to this town.
Totally.
I mean, like, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, like, architecture, are you kidding me? We're dying to build some stuff. Everybody wants to build everything. What kind do you do? Doesn't matter. We got it available.
Exactly.
Like, and then everybody, thankfully, the liberal level of this town opens people up to therapy.
Yes, it's a very friendly to mental health. And the thing that I think I was starting to feel it a little bit in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, is a lot of times therapy up in the Dallas area gets kind of intertwined with Christian counseling.
Yeah.
There can be a lot, like sometimes it's like, there's people that I know up in the Dallas area who want a therapist who's not a Christian counselor. They have a tough time sometimes finding someone who's not going to have that religious component, and
people love littering Jesus in there for some reason.
And here in Austin, it's great because you don't have to have that. There is some of that, but it's so much more open to the full spectrum of mental health care here, and destigmatizing mental health here, I think, is great. So I'm so glad that we moved here. I've been so thankful to be here.
Yeah, and that's been a great thing too about getting involved with the comedy scene here. Lane started getting involved in it pretty quickly when we moved back. I waited like about a year or so. But one thing I noticed is that the comedy community here is so quick to talk about mental health and destigmatize it. It was just like, oh my God, everyone is talking about their feelings, like real feelings, and putting it out there. And it was like, this is beautiful. This is so cool. And it's just so nice to, it makes me feel like, oh my God, like I had all these feelings inside of anxiety and insecurity and depression and all this stuff. And it's like, if I had only known that there's a community of people that want to be funny despite all the stuff that we're working on inside. And it's like, there's this shared experience. And I love that about Austin.
It took me a long time to really feel at home in the comedy scene here. And that a lot of that is just my own shit. That's my own like self-doubt and difficulty feeling like I belong anywhere. But it, just allowing ourselves to be here now 5 years, which is, I can't believe it's already been 5 years that we've been here. It was like a full 3 years before I felt like I could go around town and I wouldn't feel like, oh, if I show up at this theater, will I know anyone? Will it be weird? Will I be awkward? Like, will I have any friends at this place? Will anyone
At
know
what
who I
point
am?
do we not feel like outsiders?
Yeah, and so finally now it's like
it's
I feel,
hard though
We had to
because
put
there's
in
an
the
ups
time.
and down to a lot of it. I mean, and also the community changes over the
does,
years,
yeah.
so
Oh, yeah.
it's like you just wait a little while, and it's like I used to when I was in charge of things, I would be like. And people would come to me and they'd say, you know, this person's bothering me. I'd be like, well, you get two options. One, we can make a move and get this person out. But are they that annoying, or are they going to drift away and we're going to forget about them shortly?
yeah, people do come and go
Because
all
people,
the time.
they really do.
There's
and
an ebb
it's
and a
almost like
flow.
where I was sort of talking to you guys about earlier. The idea, it's like, to be able to continue to do this is to be able to roll with that punch. To be able to be
Right.
like, okay, like I haven't done a lot of I'm not involved in the community right now because I've been home with the baby. But I know that I can go back to it. And maybe
Right.
the people that I know won't be the same people, but
Exactly.
they'll still be nice enough human beings.
Right.
Yeah.
And like you were mentioning about how like there's an openness to kindness, I would say the nice people far outweigh the like small
Totally.
handful of trolls that exist
Yeah.
Right.
in every community. But there
Yes.
are, and like I'm very like I mentioned earlier that like I don't notice if people are talking. I wouldn't know if anyone was talking bad about me because I guess I'm thinking about myself so much that I just don't know. But like even like in the improv community, when I found out like one of my favorites, you know, from the community was talking about like somebody was mean to them, and they like screenshot this thing of somebody saying something terrible to them, and I'm like, this person exists? Who is this? You are so kind and lovely, and like because
Yeah.
there's so many people that I know in the Austin improv community. They're so nice
Yeah.
that if I ever even remotely hear someone being negative to them, I'm
Yeah.
like,
Who's got
who
time for
are
that?
they? How do they
Yeah.
exist?
Yeah,
What kind of
how are
shitty
they?
person
are
How
you here?
how
Like-
did they gain that power over this really talented, awesome, beautiful person?
Right, it's like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
How could anyone
You're
say,
right.
or like, you know, it'd be like, some people have been saying this to me, you know, someone will post something, you know, like, who's saying, don't
Right,
listen
right.
to those
It's
people.
so
I
it
mean, I'm
it
sure
is
people
hard
have
to
lots of
shake
opinions
it.
about me, but I don't care what they are.
It's
Yeah.
hard to shake it, especially if someone like targets you. But
Yeah.
I do think you're right in that this stuff has this natural progression where that shit is gonna get weeded out over
Yeah.
time. Like they're gonna lose interest, or you know something is just gonna happen that just kind of pulls them away from that, and then and the cream rises to the top.
Yeah, I mean, for
Coitus.
years, this
It's
sounds
not
crazy.
all about coitus.
For years, I
Lame.
used to keep a list of all the people that were wild, that were so crazy that I had to kick out, and then I would communicate with the other theaters to
I would
say,
love to see
hey,
that
this
list."
person, and it's gone now, unfortunately. With the turnover of the theater, there was a great purge of things.
That's probably best.
And but like just the idea of that, because it was like, but I would, by the time I would pass it on, this person would have already been a blip and nobody would have any
It's
idea what
yesterday's
it was.
news.
Be like, oh, he's not even around anymore. Like,
Yeah,
oh, I
yeah.
heard he moved to San Antonio, or oh, that guy, yeah, he stopped taking classes. Like, he's not yelling at people anymore. And you're like, oh,
non-issue.
great, there we go. Oh, I was the last one through which he tried to make it through the doors. Great. Well, lucky he dealt with me.
Yeah.
Because I don't take any shit.
Well,
But,
yeah,
you know.
that's. I think, and that something about. I guess this is a different side of that coin. This isn't about the shitty people or the trolls, but about how just people in general. Not everyone who takes a level 1 improv class, or even not everyone who graduates from an improv training center is necessarily ever going to stick with it, and
Well,
that's
ain't that the
totally.
truth?
And that's totally fine, because
yeah.
what I always tell people who are thinking about taking an improv class, because like in my therapy work, I'm often working with people that are younger than myself who are like in their 20s, and I'm if I think they might enjoy it, and especially if they're wanting to meet new people and they have an itch to do something creative, anything creative, I tell them, sign up for a level 1 improv class. And they go, well, I don't know that I could see myself being a comedy performer. I'm like, that's fine. That's great. You don't have to be. But trust me, you're going to have a lot of fun. It's going to be as much fun as you think it's going to be. It's going to be even more fun. And you're going to meet a bunch of cool, creative people who are going to be very similar to you more than likely. And those people will go on. I mean, maybe a handful might go on to be permanent fixtures in the comedy community, perhaps, maybe one or two. But the rest of them will probably all go on to just doing cool ass shit, and you'll have friends doing cool ass shit.
It's part of broadening your network,
and they'll help inspire
interesting
you.
people.
They'll help inspire you. You'll help inspire them. Y'all will hopefully be lifelong friends with a few of them, and maybe someday you'll be in a position where, you know, if you ever want to collaborate with a filmmaker and you're a writer, y'all could join forces and work together on something. And like, this is how shit happens.
That is the beautiful thing about it. It's like, I've met so many people through comedy that have gone on to do so many awesome creative things that are either tangentially related to comedy or maybe not even, but just some kind of cool performance or creative exploration of art. And I'm like, I get to know this cool person that is doing something so wild and so weird, and it's all because we happen to be in a level 3 class together, and that is just so interesting because you get to, you like you said, you get to meet amazing people and learn about different walks of life, and I feel like it helped me so much, not only in terms of like the old, like the joke of like, how do you make friends in your later 20s? How do you make friends in your 30s and your 40s? It's like, well, improv's a pretty good way of doing that. And I feel like it's just helped me become the well-rounded person that I hoped to be. It's just taught me so much about dealing with all the different types of personalities that you will encounter in your daily life, whether it's, at the grocery store or someone you're working with or a neighbor. Like, it's helped me to see beyond my eyes.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's helped me be able to see the bigger picture as far as storytelling goes. And we were talking earlier about when when I watch TV, when I'm watching what's hip, I'm looking for cultural cues. I'm looking for, like, what's the big story that's going on right now? When we look back at 2019, what did we all need and what did culture give back to us? Like, and all of us that are creating art are building that. But the people that are not even the, like, main, like, oh, I really want to create this piece of art, they're still doing it. Like they're still part of it. Every one of us is part of it, whether we're trying to be or not. And it's just a matter of taking enough time to reflect on the world. And for me, that's how I digest the world. And as I get older, it is harder to digest because I feel like every year I get informed of some other terrible thing that turns out is true. Yeah. And then you're like, wait, no, that wasn't just a Bond villain. That's an actual real thing. Oh, that's terrible. Like, and then you have to deal with that. And so, like,
you gotta process it.
Yeah, to do comedy, to be able to go into an open, safe space and to be able to, throw ideas around and figure it out and then, like, have a conversation potentially with someone who doesn't agree is a great thing. I think it, like, opens you up to being able to see the world, to being able to accept the world, and even in a larger sense, all performers to find empathy for people that are different than you. If you're trying to be other characters, you are open to what are they feeling, what's their point of view.
I think when I was when I kind of I didn't touch on this really, but I was starting improv when I was in grad school to become a therapist.
Oh yeah.
And I realized, like, there's so much crossover here. Like, improv was helpful in working out the mental muscles of empathy, communication, collaboration, and like, I think even it especially became helpful after grad school when I was actually working in the field for the first time, which is a huge shock to the system, because it's like, in my opinion, you learn just about everything when you actually are kind of thrown into the fire. And I was working in adolescent units in hospitals, and it was yeah, it was a shock because I was kind of trying to do, in retrospect, I think I was doing like a bad impression of what I thought a therapist was supposed to do and say. And I realized, like,
I feel like that's all of us in life. So
isn't
don't
it?
feel
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah,
We're
just
all
pretending.
just winging it until we figure it out.
Exactly. But working with teenagers was a wonderful gift because they were such... They had such great bullshit detectors.
Yeah, they really do.
They would
They
call
didn't
me
buy
out
anything.
for everything. They did. Yeah, you had to be totally real and genuine, and what got you a lot further than trying to be smart or trying to pretend you're smart, anyways, or trying to think of something clever to say or try and like come up with, well, have you tried this? And well, maybe you should do this. You know, like that's all. And that's probably never going to work, at least if that's what you're leading with. But if you can start from a place of respect, empathy, validation, listening, and kind of going with whatever energy they're bringing to the table. So, like, go with it. Kind of became my motto. Like, if they hated my lesson plan for that educational therapy session, then maybe I should throw it out and like listen to what they're saying. So it's sort of like, it's like...
Sounds just like improv.
It's like improv. Like if someone has an idea, go with that idea.
Yeah.
You don't have to force your idea on them. Maybe they have something much better. So, and I still rely on that even today. Like even in therapy sessions I did this week, it's like, like if you're the first one to say, my idea may not be that great, what's your idea? A lot of times they're going to, feel empowered to share their idea for how to work on whatever their mental health issue might be. But also, in a weird way, in a counterintuitive way, they might be more willing to hear your idea. Because it's like no one wants to feel like something is forced upon them. It's all about...
And people want to feel heard.
They want to feel heard. So anyway, like, it's just improv has helped in so many different ways for me. On a personal level, a professional level... And really I've realized the thing I'm most thankful for is not even that I get to do shows around town, which is a tremendous gift, and I love that. It's the friendships. As corny as that sounds, it's the fact that I have friends in Austin who are so funny and so talented, and if I'm lucky, once or twice a week, I get to hang out with those friends like yourself, Amy, and also just, like having the feeling like you are a part of something. It doesn't necessarily even have to do with like getting the gig or getting the audition or getting a show. It's just like...
It's about being part of that clubhouse.
Yeah, it's like who wants to hang out and who wants to get together and watch a movie, or I want to grill something and who wants to come over and we'll grill some stuff. It's like that to me is what life is all about, as opposed to who got what show and all that bullshit. Anyway.
So just to bring it towards the conclusion as we chat about it, I'd love to chat with you guys about how you guys developed your show, the show that you guys do together.
Yeah.
How did that idea come about? And then, like, how did you make it happen and market it and get all the stuff?
Well, it was rooted in, obviously, Lane and I's relationship. That was just... It's a shared language. It's a shared love of certain aspects of comedy.
Shared coitus.
Shared coitus.
Right.
A lot of coitus. And it was...
Again with the coitus. Always. All day long she coituses. Now,
no, it was...
Coitus.
Hashtag coitus. It was a desire over the years, especially like pre-performing... Lane and Chloe, of like, what's the funny shit that like we love, and if we could, like, in our craziest dreams, like if we could create a show, what would it be? And so I think after training and getting hundreds of shows under our belt, it was like, okay, we feel like we know a little bit.
Finally,
maybe
we're ready.
let's carve out a space. And so it started out as Chlane, the organic improv duo. Chlane being a portmanteau of Chloe and Lane.
it's the most...
is that what the word portmanteau means? Oh,
yeah. Yeah. and it's often mispronounced Chlane.
Yes, it's beautifully confusing.
But I love that it's
dumb.
Yeah.
It happened, and it's what we're sticking with, and we love how silly it is. So it was a desire to like, okay, let's just get up the two of us and just see what happens. And we found that we really liked this this intense style of play.
Yeah, people. Mason Pitluck, artistic director at Fallout, said that we look like we're trying to fuck each other on stage. Is that we use that quote?
That's our tagline.
That's why we couldn't get paid.
Facebook would not approve our ad.
Yeah, we couldn't get Facebook ads. Yeah, because it had that on. It took me forever to figure out that's what was tripping up the system.
Lane was like texting me like, I don't know why the heck Facebook isn't approving.
Yeah, I've changed everything on this.
It says fuck.
Well, also, weirdly, they also don't allow you to have that much text in your ad.
Yeah. It's
so
got to be like
things like the date and the cost. They hate that.
Yeah,
They're
it's
like,
I didn't know that.
Like we just want the word. We want the word laugh and like a shitty drawing.
But no, we've been doing.
Like
we were doing a very.
Bentleys.
We were doing a very IO style organic improv.
Something that we weren't seeing a lot of in Austin. And
so we like to think that we bring that to the table.
and so then it was like, okay, we've been doing the improv shows for a while. What if we actually challenged ourselves and put together this sketch show of things that, again, it's like we're not seeing it represented in Austin, and what can we bring to the table as married 30-somethings? And
I thought of it in very simple terms. I didn't think of it at all like we're not seeing this in Austin. I just thought, with us being married, let's just see what happens if the only overarching idea is a sketch show about relationships.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm of the school of you don't have to overthink everything.
Totally. Yeah.
So it's like
my thought about it not being represented, it didn't go beyond that.
I didn't want to trick it up beyond that. That was and we are just a husband and wife. And if we're doing a sketch show about relationships, that just made total sense to me.
Write what you know.
Write what you know. And
it's
and then
the only thing you can do.
Yeah.
Right, what you know. And then
it's
we
funny
got
how your point of view is so your point of view, like you can't even get out of it.
No,
like,
it's
there's
all like
no way
know.
to find. Sometimes I try to imagine what it was like before I had the baby. Like I think about. Well, because I remember right before I had the baby, I was all like, "Feel this right now. Like think about it." Think about this
being
is
a
your view
mother.
of the world,
right?
You know, well, only just like the difference between, and I didn't really get it at the time, but it was like every big moment in my life, I've done that. Where it's like when I graduated from high school, I'd be like, okay, just take a second. Like this is what it is.
Great.
Take your mental
This
picture.
is it. No kidding. The only parts of my life that I remember are those mental pictures. I have no memory of anything. But I have occasional teeny little moments like that where I'm like, I remember standing in the middle of the apartment that I lived in and looking at everything. Like, that was my mental picture day.
Yeah.
When I guess
Smart.
I moved out or something or first moved in.
Those little
And I
flashes.
was like, remember this?
That's what it gets boiled down to.
It's all you get.
You can't keep track
Very
of all those
smart.
individual frames.
Yeah, so you guys are writing what you know.
So we
It's
wrote what we
your
know.
point of view.
Right,
And
and the other, I think the other great thing that we bring to this really is why I think this show turned out well and why I ended up being so proud of it, and it's like the thing I'm most proud of. I think it's very close between how this sketch show turned out and then also the podcast that I do. But Are You Happy, about mental health and comedy. And so this is why I'm so. This is why I think this is part of the winning recipe, in my opinion, about our show, is that because we're married and we have such a long history with each other of just being so funny with each other and being so open and honest with each other, is we don't. I think. I'm so guilty of this. I think so many of us nice improvisers, not that I mean to call myself nice, but
You're a nice improviser.
But it's like Chloe and I are not afraid to say to the other person, this line could be funnier. are like, this could be funnier.
Yes, the creative process is not always kittens and rainbows.
It was
and
rigorous.
Ice cream sundaes.
It was rigorous.
It's
It was
tough
like
work.
we will not stop until
It's like the teenagers
every line
when you were in the hospital. It's
right.
like we have a big bullshit detector with each other.
Yeah, it was
it's
like, this.
I know this isn't your best stuff,
And it's
not to be hypercritical. It was just
Yeah.
like, we know that there is some greatness that just needs
Yeah.
to be unlocked.
And then the other great thing is with the trust, it was like, we know we were not afraid to be like, okay, I'll cut this thing, but I believe in this thing over here. And it's like, well, I don't get that thing, but if you really believe in it, go for it.
Your funeral.
Yeah, and then it would still work, but it would work. But the thing that was and I relate to, there was something I heard years ago on some Seinfeld special feature, because I'm a nerd. I'm a fucking nerd. I watch all of those. I watch every special feature I can get my hands on.
Loves commentary.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But
That's why podcasts are big.
Yeah,
Everyone does.
yeah. Okay, so Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David, they would say that that something about them as a duo. One, they were not afraid to give each other shit or say flat out, "This is not funny," or "This could be funnier." They were tough. They were a tough sell. But Jerry and Larry together, they said that even if they were doing something really weird and out there, and if NBC didn't get it or if other people didn't get it, they said if Jerry and Larry, if the two of them, if they were fully on board with something, once they both were like, "Oh, this is great, let's do this," they said that there was this indescribable electric feeling that like, this is unstoppable. And I felt like that was the vibe when you and I, because I doubt myself a lot, but when you and I would get together and like we come up with something together and we're both, that feeling when we're both like, this is great, I'm having a blast doing this, it just felt like nothing.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this has to be the thing. This is what we're doing with this scene or this bit. It was like,
and I'd never felt that before. Never felt that. So
yeah,
it was
I think
just
we had obviously a connection and a chemistry, and there was just this this shared understanding that allowed us to be passionate yet vulnerable and just willing to put it out there and just be like, here's our
and
show.
Katie Stone, our director, was great.
That was also a critical part of the process. Was yes, the show is written and performed by us, but we could not have done it without Katie as our director, because we needed to have the impartial and just the observer to see from the audience's perspective what we were trying to accomplish, and so that she was able to help walk us through and rip things apart at the seams and stitch it back together to make this very custom show.
And we absolutely, I mean, we told her, it was like, we don't want, you don't have to fluff our egos or anything. Like, we want to make this as absolutely good as it can possibly be. And then, so she was fantastic. You know, we're blown away at the fact, we're sitting down to watch a baseball game on vacation in Oakland, and we get just as we sit down, our phones blow up that we were nominated for a B. Iden Payne. Our show was nominated for a B. Iden Payne, and then Katie was as director was nominated for best director, which is amazing. So all of that's awesome. We're super excited. We got invited to perform at the B. Iden Payne Awards show, and they specifically requested. They said, "We want you to perform the final sketch from our sketch show,"
which is
that's so great.
Which is it's wonderful. I was just so flattered and touched, and the scene that they want us to perform is probably the most near and dear part of our show, because it's an idea that Lane and I have been kind of dreaming about and ruminating on
tinkering
for years.
It was an idea, and we dusted it off like a week before our first test show, our first what do you call that? not a test show.
Preview?
A preview. Thank
Yeah.
you, theater person. I'm nominated for a theater award, and I don't know.
Lane's really good at theater.
But I was going to
Hey,
say,
man.
the thing we should probably also mention, because, you never know when someone might be listening to this podcast. Is
You really
just
never know.
You never know. You never know. Is we did just get the green light for we're going to come back and do another main stage run at the end of March 2020.
Yeah, late spring.
Through
At Cold Town?
Yeah,
at Cold Town.
another evening with Chlane.
8:30 on Saturdays, late March through early May,
Great.
2020. So we're beyond thrilled that we get to come back, and because Katie Stone is moving to LA very soon, we asked Kyle Romero to be our director, and he's going to come join us, and we're very thrilled to have him.
Interesting. So your new run will have another flavor of a new director.
Another-
Exactly.
yeah.
Great.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's great.
I think you never want to keep repeating yourself, and we have a lot of ideas that for various reasons didn't work within this first show.
Yeah.
but that we're excited to dust off and explore.
We're
and see
so
how they
excited to write the next one. Yeah,
could fit in.
Yes. Yeah, there were so many ambitious ideas we had for the last show.
We really bit off more than we could
fucking
chew.
we had some very ambitious ideas, and we're like 3 weeks out, and we're like, we're not gonna have time to make all this work. So now we
I love
have
ambitious
yeah.
ideas.
Now we have time. Now we're gonna do some shit,
And we've learned so much from being given this opportunity. It was like, okay, you got to put this show up. There's going to be butts and seats. You got to make this show happen. You can't disappoint. We learned so much by that trial by fire that I feel so much more prepared going into this next one. That's not to say I won't have anxiety, because it's always there.
Yeah.
But I will be much more ready and willing and knowing what things to look out for with this next run.
I feel like that's a good idea to sort of wrap the whole thing, which is that when you get to a point in your life that you guys are late 30s, I'm early 40s, it's like you're trying to figure out the next journey and what you're doing, but you've had so many opportunities to try stuff and do things and fail and figure it out that it's nice when you get to go back with all that knowledge and try something again.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, turns out all this life I've had is helpful because now I have this experience that can help me be a better performer or be a better
Right.
therapist or be a better, wife, mother, what can I do? I'm learning from everything that I've done. And sometimes, I do, when I talk to people that are doing comedy, it is a lot of 20-somethings, but I love it when I can talk to people who've been doing it for a while, because I feel like, we've been through stuff, we've tried comedy various ways, and now with a little bit of life experience under our belts, we can put comedy out in a new and different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a little bit, I hate to use the word wise, but like a wiser perspective, just coming from having been on Earth for a while.
Yeah, I actually truly believe that the journey of wisdom, like to be a wise 80-year-old, you have to start looking out for wise things in your 40s. You got to start prepping. If you're gonna be the old 80-something wise, you have to start looking at stuff, because this is where the life crises all happen. People in their 20s, everybody's talking about them. People in their 30s, everybody's talking about them. 40 and above, we're like a silent crowd who's like, hey, shh, pay your bills. That's it. Like, that's all you get. So
how's your 401k doing?
It's nice that we get, we can have journeys. We can have creative journeys. We can, find our careers. We can change our careers. We
we
change
can have
where we
successes
live.
and failures.
Yes, and it's all the beautiful, journey. And there's so much more. There's so much more to the whole thing. I look forward to seeing the new version of it and seeing how it changes for you guys.
Thank you. We do too.
We do too. Yeah. I try to just be grateful for right now.
Yeah.
And I feel like with all this, it's like, yes, I don't know where the journey is taking us. And I feel like it's just always going to evolve and change over time wherever we're at and whatever we're doing. And so I just have to remind myself to enjoy what's going on right now. And it's been so much fun. Go with the flow. It's been fun.
a wonderful gift.
I've typically struggled with that, which is why I do have to remind myself of all that. And
Get that embroidered on a pillow.
yeah, exactly. And if I may,
embroidered on our coitus pillow. Hey, I'm talking coitus.
That's right. Coitus
would you
Write it down.
would you mind if I mentioned
Mention
the
whatever you like.
podcast I do
Tell
is
me.
Yeah, but Are You Happy? It's the other thing I'm super proud of right now. Katie Stone and I started it I guess about a year ago, and we started recording it about a year ago. It dropped near the beginning of this year, and we have a podcast. It's called Yeah, but Are You Happy? And it started with this seemingly simple idea, and it opened us up to just so many wonderful complexities. But it all started with this idea of exploring the intersection between mental health and comedy, or maybe in a broader sense, mental health and creativity. So it focuses a lot on comedy and addiction, mental health, depression, anxiety, stage fright, perfectionism, all sorts of stuff. But we've also started doing some live shows that have been really fun, where we, Katie and I, kind of take a back seat, and we just sort of act as MCs or hosts while we bring on some of the best performers in Austin, comedy performers who come out and do either stand-up or bits or just sincere storytelling that somehow it incorporates mental health, their personal mental health journeys, and humor. And we did one back in May that turned out just amazing, and it was like funny. There was so much laughter, but it was also like very powerful, and there were tears. And so we're doing another one. As of this recording, we're doing one tomorrow night. So it will have already happened.
I was like, this episode will come out.
It will have already happened. However, the recording of that live episode will be up and available, I'm sure.
You can find it
what's your
at your
website?
nearest iTunes, your
Apple.
Brookshires,
Sharper
your
Image.
Skaggs Alpha Beta.
Skaggs Alpha Beta, yes. This is why Chloe's funny.
Old references.
But no,
Old
yeah.
references.
What's your website?
Yeah, but you just enter in Yeah, but Are You Happy on Facebook. It'll bring us right up. We're on Instagram. We are.
Do you have your own website?
We don't have our own website.
Just an iTunes,
we have we're
podcast?
Apple Podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, all the things. So wherever you get podcasts, if you just enter in, quite similarly, you can do Yes But Why, and then when you're done with that, you can enter Yeah, But Are You Happy?
I know they're squashing me on the old yes but SEO here.
Yeah, we're screwing
There's
everybody.
so much of it.
Damn it! I'm
closing
sorry.
in.
The only other thing squashing me is a math book called Yes But Why. It's about math.
Damn.
Yeah, it's getting me every time I Google myself.
Now there's
it's,
going to be like
it's rough.
yeah, huh?
That's your podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, huh?
Yeah. Nobody wants it. Nobody asked for it.
It's tough to buy that website, but it's pretty good. But thank you so much.
Thank
you
for
for
having
having
me on the
us.
podcast. I really
Thank you so
appreciate
much.
you. You're lovely.
You're wonderful. Thank you so much for having
This was
us.
a
This was
treat.
great. Thank you for coming to our home
Yes.
and bringing podcast equipment.
Thanks for listening to Yes But Why Podcast. Check out all our episodes on yesbutwhypodcast.com or check out all the content on our network, HC Universal, at hcuniversalnetwork.com.